Hello, welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm Iain.
I'm Gary.
I'm Geoff.
And today we're going to talk about 2012 movie Robot and Frank. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Frank Langella, who is an aging cat burglar. And in his old age, he's sort of becoming a bit of a burden for his son Hunter, played by James Marsden. So Hunter purchases a robot for Frank as a servant. Frank doesn't really warm to the robot at first, but then when he realizes the robot has no morals, realizes he can go back to his old life and use this robot as his partner.
I really enjoyed this film. It was exquisite. It's what I would call proper sci-fi, because it's this robot is AI. It focuses on the relationship between this old guy who, right early on in the film, it's not a spoiler, you sort of understand that his mind's beginning to fail a bit. He's beginning to suffer the symptoms of dementia. And so he's not really able to look after himself. The robot becomes a carer for him. And the real focus of the film is about the kinds of relationships that could be built with AI, as well as the kind of decline of dementia and how AI could help with that scenario. So it's quite a focused subject material, but it handles it brilliantly, and I call it proper sci-fi because it's really kind of projecting into the very near future. These are issues that we could be facing very soon in our society.
The film opens up with the tagline, in the near future. And you can say, I mean, it is in many respects a science fiction movie because of the premise with this AI. But throughout the rest of the movie, we don't really see that much other sort of technological advancements. We have full screen Skype and a couple of really ugly small cars. Other than that,
the phones,
quite sexy phones.
The phones were
like
quite
really
cool.
thin, like almost see-through kind of phones, you know.
But everything else just kind of seems mundanely normal. And that is what helps sort of set the film in a reality where this is very much a possibility within the next 20 to 30 years.
Yeah. For me, I thought this film was fucking awesome. The moment Frank Langella stepped on the screen, I was instantly sold that he was an aging father. You know, he had a bit of a life behind him, but you know, you don't get too many details at the start. But him on camera was amazing. The scenes of him walking down the road, I could just watch for hours. You know, it really made me believe his character, which enforced my belief in Liv Tyler's character and James Marsden's character and Susan Sarandon's character, and it just built up this whole universe that I just got completely drawn into.
Everybody puts in a great performance, don't they? I mean, obviously the main guy his performance is excellent, but everybody that's supporting him is very believable, and nothing snaps you out of that reality that they're creating.
Why don't you go on inside, tidy up, and cook us whatever food you can find?
Okay, Hunter. Good to meet you, Frank. I like your house.
That thing is going to murder me in my sleep.
We're talking about, obviously, the guy who managed to pull off Nixon on camera. You know, this how good of an actor Frank Langella is. I mean, also, at the same time, Skeletor was pretty badass too. But my belief in those characters furthered my belief when the robot turns up. I mean, the way that obviously we follow Frank from the start, and you walk into his house, and his house is a shit tip. Obviously brought on by his age and the dementia setting in, he's, you know, forgetting that milk is going off and just leaving clothes all over the place. So obviously Hunter comes along and brings this robot in to just keep him company and tidy up.
Fuck this shit.
Frank, you need a project. Mental stimulation plus a regimented schedule will vastly improve your cognitive functioning. Besides, it's good exercise.
There's no emotion behind this robot's voice.
Well, they never actually give it a name. It's always referred to as the robot or robot the entire time, even though the characters sort of invest personality into it and sort of treat it almost as a sentient being. but they still just call it robot. And it sort of shows that sort of first pioneering steps towards the point where if we had an AI and gave it a name, would it then become a person, or is it alive? Does it have sentience? And this film sort of hinders on that, because there's a couple of points in the film where you're waiting for the robot to do something that would hint that it is more aware than it's letting on.
Humanize
and
it.
And because that is an audience member, I humanized that robot because I wanted that robot to be more alive. I wanted my electric dreams. I wanted just to see that evolution take hold. But it is those early steps, and it is just running protocols. However, it does have those protocols bent.
Yeah.
Especially by Frank, especially when they start to get back into his old crime habits.
You're starting to grow on me.
Thank you, Frank. It's time for your enema.
But I think that just further cements the brilliance of the robot character, because
it's poised but it's balanced perfectly,
it bends
isn't it?
the
Between
rules.
Yeah, it's, there is an element of humanity to it. There's just enough that you can impart that sort of sense of humanity to this robot as you're watching it, and then it'll bring you back out and make you think, oh no, it is just a robot.
Yeah.
And you realise that there is a difference between AI and actually being alive and conscious. And it makes you think about what that difference is as a film.
The robot actually, at a certain point, it actually kind of understands it's not alive.
Yeah,
I do love
cool.
that. It's like the part where him and Frank are walking through the woods for the first time, and he says to Frank about, if you were to die, I would seem to die as well, because they would take me back to the factory and erase me. And then, obviously, spoilers, but later on, the robot brings that conversation up, and actually, it turns out it used it to manipulate Frank so that it could stay around. I'm thinking, you sneaky bastard, how the fuck did you do that?
The truth is, I don't care if my memory is erased or not.
But how can you not care about something like that?
Think about it this way. You know that you're alive. You think, therefore you are.
Oh, that's philosophy.
In a similar way, I know that I'm not alive. I'm a robot.
I don't want to talk about how you don't exist. It's making me uncomfortable.
There's a moment where he confesses that he doesn't really care if he dies, because he's not alive.
Yeah.
So at that point of the film, you think, oh yeah, you felt like this thing is so alive, and you've grown to almost acquire Frank's attachment to this robot yourself as a viewer of the film, and then all of a sudden the robot goes, well, it doesn't matter if I get, deleted, or if I'm taken off and dismantled, because I'm not alive. I don't care.
But the people that would be left, if Frank did outlive the robot, he would feel that loss.
Yeah.
Because that robot would have no memory of the times that they'd shared together. And so it very much is just like any other human-to-human interaction.
Yeah.
And that, for me, is the biggest investment and the draw into this film, because it is played so fantastically well.
They're going to have this big fundraiser party thing on Friday, and all the young hoity-toity couples are going to come.
No, sounds awful.
Yeah. Do you want to come with me?
Yes.
Cool.
See, for me, the draw is Frank Langella. His, like I said, his performance just got me. The first time you just see him lying on the sofa, and Liv Tyler rings up, and he has like a 5-second conversation with her. But I was so sold that was probably the first conversation he'd had with her in a long time. Yet he's seeing his son like every week, and the relationship between him and Hunter was so weak and strained at certain points. I hated the character, and I loved the character of Frank at the exact same time, and just wanted to see him further develop a relationship with the robot. I especially love the scenes with Susan Sarandon. I will admit I have a bit of a thing for the lady, and just he walks into the library and he's conversing with her, and obviously she has her own little robot as well, Mr. Darcy. Looks like a fucking giant printer. Filing cabinet upside down painted silver. You got the on-off button right on its face. But then, one of my favourite scenes was where Frank and Jenny have gone to a party, and the two robots have met, and they say to the robots, why don't you two talk? And it's just like, hey, how are you? I'm operating 100% efficiency. Me too. That's it. And I was like, sold. That was brilliant.
Well, why don't you pretend that Mr. Darcy is a human being like me and start up a conversation?
Hi there. How are you doing?
I'm functioning normally.
As am I.
There's a great sense of humour in this film, actually.
Yeah.
All the way through, there's like a little kind of cheeky smile to everything that's going on. But also, there's a deep philosophical underpinning to the events that's going on. And I think because it balances those sort of perfectly, it actually kind of gets you much more involved than many kind of serious, like, sci-fi, like the ones that try to be real kind of thoughtful about stuff. This film has a lot more appeal, and it's very, I would love to watch it again. It's rewatchable because it's an enjoyable experience.
You're gonna brute force it.
Brute force. That sounds like it might attract attention.
All it means is you're gonna try every combination until you get it right. That would take a human like me weeks. How long would it take you?
Assuming it's a 3-number combination, somewhere between 4 seconds and 1 hour and 43 minutes.
I think the jokes were there just because the film does have a very sort of dark core subject matter at its core, which is dealing with the mental health issues of dementia, which for me is perhaps one of the worst sort of mental illnesses you could ever have, because you lose all of those memories. You then also start to peel away the layers of everything that makes you who you are.
Yeah.
And of course everyone else's perception of you is also going to change because you're not even going to be aware of it.
Yeah.
And so the scenes with him having these discussions with the robot, and the robot trying to give him these sort of basic day-by-day structures in order to give him some plan, and obviously the small revelations that do come when some of his memories do come back to him are very poignant and have huge payoffs towards the end of the film. I also think that Frank Langella is also fantastic in the film because he holds the screen by himself for the most part. I mean, you can almost say that the robot is another actor that's there, but for the most part it's just him. And it's all of his micro expressions as well, because the role could have just been any other actor could have done that part, but it might not have had the same impact as what he delivered.
Yeah, he just captures the screen every time he's on.
Hey, what's he thinking? Just leaving you there with this thing.
Look, I told him that he comes around to see me too much. So...
Too much? Daddy, he has abandoned you with a machine.
Yeah, well, at least he did something.
It ultimately obviously builds up to Frank teaching the robot his skills of being a burglar. And I love listening to his old stories. Him explaining he was a 2-story man. He'd climb up 2-story buildings and find a window to climb in, and he'd steal only the big stuff from the most richest people so they'd get their money back through the insurance. And the robot, you kind of get drawn in that the robot is listening, but he's programmed to listen. It's just not, registering like that.
The robot's primary objective is Frank's health.
Yeah.
And Frank is never more alive than when he's trying to steal something.
Yeah.
And that's where there's such incredible, so many layers to this film. It's the contrast of the robot that remembers everything, but isn't conscious, and Frank, who is the most alive when he's being naughty, but he's got memory problems. However, his memory comes back to him when he's focused and feeling passionate about something. So that it's emphasising how emotion and memory are so sort of linked, and also emphasising what it means to be alive, like truly alive, and how that's so much more than just memories, because with the two of them together, they create this incredible contrast of the concept of mind, but together they are like more than the sum of their parts. And by that you get to focus on what every aspect of each of their characters means. It's brilliantly done.
There's another important aspect that I like about the movie as well, and there's that the majority of the film is dealing with senior citizens. And as we know, technology is rushing ahead at an accelerated rate. And for most of us, we sort of lose touch with these new technological advancements.
Yeah.
And if you get so out of touch with them, they become almost like alien devices to you. And so what we're seeing here is also a shift in sort of the technological advancement, where we're seeing the closure of these libraries, and we're seeing all these young kids come in, turf out these old people, and just replace them all with computer terminals. So we're sort of seeing that very light transition, which is going to happen to the rest of us, and watching these elderly people sort of dealing with the fact that everything, that their way of life is going to change. And the film, it's all a very small layer of the film, but it's also, I think, very poignant, and it sort of helps emphasize the rest of the main core of the film.
This lasagna looks like crap.
Well, it's penne.
I'm going into town. I'm going to eat at Harry's.
Daddy, Harry's is gone, remember? And I spent an hour making this.
What are you talking about? I ate there last week.
Would you just eat it, please?
Favourite scene, Geoff, or most memorable?
Well, for me, Liv Tyler's hot. She is hot. But one of my favourite scenes is not necessarily because it's Liv Tyler in there, but because it just made me smile quite a bit, was when Liv Tyler decides, she's a bit sort of anti-robot. His daughter's quite a bit, like, she doesn't like the idea of...
She's extremely anti-robot.
Yeah,
free spirit.
She says she is, and then she comes back home, she turns the robot off, and of course Frank's already sort of beginning to make his relationship with the robot, and Frank gets really mad about it, and which is really funny, because, you know, initially he's just like, oh, I never see you and I don't want the robot, but by the time she comes to say, oh, I'm gonna like stop doing everything I'm doing traveling around the world, I'm gonna come look after you, he finally gets like his family to be with him, and then he's like, no, I don't want that, I want my robot. And so she's like, oh no, Daddy, don't worry about it, switches off the robot, and then he comes down and she's like, the house is really like spick and span tidy, she's being the perfect daughter, and he's like, you haven't done this. This is, you've switched back on my robot. And he just like, he gets the cornflakes and he chucks them down on the floor, and he's just like, has a tantrum basically. And then she's like, oh, okay, Daddy, I'm sorry, I turned on the robot.
She packs her bags and goes. That's not before he hands her something else that he's stolen prior.
I love the build up to that.
Brilliant.
Because obviously he, you know, like you said, he built up this really nice relationship, and then she turns off the robot. So he formulates the plan to act like his memory's going. So he turns into a bit of an asshole and just starts making a mess, you know, and forcing her to tidy up. It's that point where she comes down and she's like, Dad.
Dad, what did you do in the bathroom? Seriously.
It's your cooking.
Very funny.
I think my favourite scene, and also I think the funniest moment in the film, comes towards the end of the film, where Frank he's kind of laying around in bed, he's looking very ill, and he's called his son back to sort of say his last few words. And the police have also turned up because numerous things have gone missing around the town, and the robot is in there, and all of a sudden starts counting down from 10.
Self-destruct sequence initialized. 10. 9.
You didn't.
8.
And run.
7.
Frank, stay there. Don't move.
6.
He's lying.
5.
There's no bomb.
4. 3.
God damn it, come on.
And the rest of the police officers are like, wait, do these things have a self-destruct? Shit, let's get out of here! They run out of the building, and his son, Hunter's just sat on the stairs like, Dad, I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
2.
What a hunk of crap.
It's a very funny moment, and it is obviously a payoff from a joke earlier in the film as well. But I think it was just... the film was already building up to quite a crescendo, and that there just completely lightened the mood once more. I thoroughly recommend Robot and Frank. This film didn't have a theatrical release. It's a very independent movie, and it's pretty much gone under the radar for so many people. This film deserves praise and attention, and it deserves to have people see it and talk about it, because of the themes of the movie are going to become more and more relevant to a society every day. It's such a heartwarming buddy story as well, that it doesn't matter what age you are, you're going to get some enjoyment from this film.
Yeah.
It's so charismatic, it's so engrossing and captivating that it's going to be impossible for you to turn this movie off. I definitely recommend you go out and find a copy of this film. You will be blown away by its magical brilliance of storytelling.
I highly recommend this film. If not for the original story for Frank Langella's performance, if not for his, it's James Marsden's and Liv Tyler's performance, and if not theirs, then fucking watch it for Susan Sarandon. As a bonus, you have this really emotional, really likable robot character who just will do anything for you. And yeah, the only reason you would not watch this film is if you're a fucking raving lunatic.
I highly recommend this film. Massive recommendations. It'll make you think, it'll make you feel, there's a real warmth to this film that is hard to capture, but this does it brilliantly. You'll fall in love with the characters, and you'll almost be torn between sadness and joy, and laughter and sadness and seriousness, all the way through the film. And right at the end, there's a big payoff, and you just feel fantastic by the end of it. A really good, feel-good film.
Definitely. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
Frank, I'm concerned. I may have to sedate you for your safety.
Then it costs you a little extra, not bastard.